Welcome to this edition of Equip. We are joined today by veteran missionary Erik Johnson to the Dominican Republic. Erik's going to talk with us today about how a missionary receives a short-term missions trip with teens. That's a very special group, and I know Erik has tremendous experience with that. So we're glad to hear from Erik today. Erik, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Excited to have you a part of this session of Equip today. I know you're going to be a great resource to those youth pastors or pastors that are planning that short-term trip with a group of teens that have a heart to go serve the missionary and be a blessing to them. But we wanted to hear specifically from the missionary's perspective about receiving a group on a short-term trip, especially teens. Can you tell us, Erik, a little bit about yourself, just briefly here for our audience, and then also maybe a couple of things about how we can be a help to you as we plan that first-term trip to, or it doesn't even have to be a first-term trip, to missions and working with teens.
Well, wonderful. Yes, thank you, Pastor Joyner. Mission trips can be wonderful. In fact, I was called into missions after going on a missions trip myself. And so especially teen mission trips are a wonderful opportunity for teens to come down and get exposure to the mission field, to find out, as they've been praying and giving to missionaries, what it's really like to be on the mission field. Other things that can be a blessing to the missionaries, just that interaction with their supporting churches, and to find out what's going on back home, and to put some faces to those who've been writing them and supporting them over the years, and also just to be a blessing to your family. You know, sometimes you get on the field and sometimes you feel a little lonely out there, and it's great to have some reinforcements there and just the encouragement to having a group come in, be interested in your ministry, and to see something positive happen for the cause of Christ while you're there.
Terrific. Now, are there anything specific that as a youth pastor or whoever's going to be leading this trip, anything they can plan for on this side of it that we should be thinking about as we go to be a help to you? Any kind of preparation, thoughts, anything like that?
Certainly, especially those first few contacts with the youth pastor or pastor who's desiring to come down to the mission field. As the missionary, you really want to take time to understand their expectation level, what they want to do when they get there. You want to find out about the size of the group that's coming. We've hosted as few as 2 or 3, as many as 43. And so you really want to know what kind of activities, what kind of projects you want to do. Are you going to do a vacation Bible school? Are you going to do a youth conference, which we like to do with teens, tract and Bible distribution? So you really want to take that time to find out what their expectations are, and then if that fits what you are trying to accomplish as well in your own ministry.
Sure. I know receiving a group is, realistically, it is a great interruption to your ministry. When you say as many as 43, I think, wow, that is a big number. So is that a conversation that happens 6 months, a year? How much in advance does the conversation need to happen to start to plan this trip? How many can you accommodate? What's the expectations? What do you be doing? Those kind of things.
Yeah, definitely the more time ahead, at least I would say a year in advance.
Okay.
In some cases, 2 years in advance, especially in the case of a large group. You want to make those plans to understand housing. You know, how are you going to house 15, 20 people? Is it going to be in a hotel? Every missionary is different. This would be a good time to say, every ministry is different in different stages. When we first started on the mission field, we hosted groups in our home. We only had one child. As our ministry grew and as our family grew, it became much more difficult. Now we have very good accommodations in town, cheap accommodations. Transportation is another issue. So all those details want to be fleshed out and figured out ahead of time, so that, and the cost as well. You want to be able to relay that cost. That's another thing that helps the churches very much in front of the time, ahead of time, to know this is what the bottom line is going to be for us if we bring this amount of people to the mission field.
Terrific. I think I got it. If the leader can be in contact with you a year or two in advance, kind of here's what we're thinking. What can we do? When can we plan this? To give you some lead time on it. And then you have to go and set up housing and transportation and meals. It's a lot of work on the missionary's part. So as much time as possible is going to be a greater help to you. How about some areas that ministries have brought some hurt to you, brought some challenge to you, that we could help our churches that are planning those kind of trips avoid those things.
Well, I would say in that case, we've been very fortunate. We haven't had too many negative experiences. But like I mentioned with the housing, sometimes that's something that's just dynamic in the relationship of your family. We had some instances where when we had people to stay in our home, it just got to be too much. And so you, as a missionary, have to make those adjustments. Also, it comes down to communication with the leaders as far as what your standards of dress and conduct are going to be, and your interaction with the nationals. And a lot of that can be taken care of ahead of time as long as there's good communication with the leaders of the group that are coming.
That's great advice. I know that we want to be mindful that we are actually visiting you, and we're there to listen to the missionary that is the expert on that field, and to be as much of a help and not a hindrance as possible. Can you give us an idea? Do you have like an orientation time? Do you have a time of gathering at the front end of that trip to say, okay, here's what the week's going to look like, right. Here's what each day is going to look like, and you can plan that week out? Right.
Certainly, I would say even ahead of time with the leader, you want to be spending time figuring out, after you decide kind of what your basic schedule is going to be, if you're going to be doing a VBS or things like that. And then even ahead of time, sending them a large list of things they want to make sure they bring. In our case, we are in a hot climate, so you want sunglasses and sunscreen, bug repellent, things like that. But once they have actually gotten to the field, you definitely, as soon as possible, want to have some type of orientation meeting. There's some things I mentioned that you want to be careful of, especially with teenagers, because teenagers need sometimes advice and help. You want to advise them on the security issues, where they're going to be staying in a hotel or a neighborhood, if they're passing out flyers. You want to make sure they understand the health concerns. If there's ever any kind of injury, they need to inform you as a missionary so you can have that health taken care of. Interaction with nationals, and especially the outlook for the week. And as the missionary, you really want to set the tone by being excited about what's going to be accomplished that week, and just get them revved up about what they're going to do for the Lord, because they're going to be there for a short time.
Sure. Yeah, I even heard earlier, and I'll pass this on because I'm sure you've done this already, that with the technology we have today, if it's a Skype conversation with the leader and perhaps with the group from that missionary before they go, hey, here's what's happening, here's what we're planning for, here's what you can expect. Great resources for us to use out there today.
That's a great opportunity. FaceTime, things like that, you can get together. And it really helps, I think, sometimes, even if the parents can be a part of that, to calm some nerves, to have that confidence that we're sending our children to somebody who kind of knows what he's doing.
That's a great idea. Any closing remarks here as we think about preparing for that short-term mission trip with teens?
Well, just a couple of tips. Every trip is going to be different, so there's no reason to get into all the details, but as a missionary, some of the things I've learned over the years is I would like, as a missionary, every week there's a mission team to connect with the teens. Don't act like a tour guide or a babysitter, but to connect with the teens, trying to be a mentor to them, because you may be a really large influence in their lives. And you also want to communicate during the trip very much with the leaders. In our climate, it's very hot. And some days we're out passing tracts for a couple hours and they're just exhausted. And as the missionary, sometimes you don't know the state of the flock, and you need to communicate with the leaders. Do they need some more downtime? Is it too much work, too little work? Always have little jobs ready to go that maybe would help in that area. Maybe the most important part of a mission trip, I believe, is how you commune with them. What I mean by that is times of testimony and devotions. Some of the best trips we've seen with the kids who made the biggest decisions when the time was planned to reflect upon what's been accomplished, what could be accomplished in the future, and that really impacts the kids. And lastly, as a missionary, I want to spend time commending them, thanking them for their hard service. Because, mission trips a lot of times can be very difficult. People get sick. It's not easy. But you want to thank them for taking their time and talent and treasure to come and help you on the mission field. And those are some things I think will help missionaries be with groups.
Outstanding. Thank you for your faithful service there in the Dominican, and thanks for taking out time on this video. We'll pray for you as you prepare for your next short-term mission trip leading teens. Thanks for Erik Johnson being here, missionary to the Dominican Republic. You can also download his helpful tips at the bottom of this presentation today. Thanks for joining us on Equip, thecaringchurch.com.